I've been camping most of my life, the kind that doesn't have porta potties or a gravel road to your site, the kind where you leave the trailhead with a pack and a map and the idea that you might not see another tent until you come back. I learned to move quietly in wood smoke and moonlight. My dog came with me every time. He's a big mutt with a slow, careful way about him. There's something about a dog at your side that rearranges fear into something you can manage. He notices the difference between a deer and a person at 50 yards. I trusted that better than I trusted my own ears when I was tired. This one weekend was late fall. The air had that clean, snapping quality, no mosquitoes, no summer warmth, just a thin, bright cold that made skin feel more alive. I picked a small clearing 3 miles from the trailhead, a spot where the trees opened like someone had taken a breath. I set the tent on a patch of needles, stacked a modest fire with pieces I'd gathered on the walk-in, and spread a ground sheet because I'd learned that sleeping on damp dirt is one of those things you accept once and never repeat. The sky went dark early that night, the kind of dark that turns small things into silhouettes and leaves the rest to suggestion. I remember the way the night smelled, the clean bite of resin, damp leaves, and under that, the ghost of camp soap on my hands. I'd been poking at the coals, turning a stick over and over because the motion felt like keeping time. My dog lay on his side, one ear half up, half asleep. The forest made its usual catalog of sounds. A branch would sigh and settle, a distant owl would make the hollow call it always does, and I felt that easy, bland contentment you get when you've walked enough miles that your body finally lets you rest. It was probably around midnight when I heard it. I was tossing a small log onto the fire. The stick cracked and sent a spray of sparks up. The sound wasn't from the wood. It was my voice, clear the way I say his name when I'm calling him for dinner. At first I laughed out loud under the smoke because the mind does that. It makes jokes to keep itself from being scared. Weird echo, I told myself. I listened. The trees kept their usual rhythm. My dog didn't move. I expected him to get up, to cock his head to answer. Instead, he nudged my knee and blinked at me like he understood that something was wrong. Then the voice came again, louder. Not an echo. Not the loopy, distant doubling that sometimes happens behind a canyon. This was plain and direct, coming from a line of trees a few yards beyond the clearing. It had my cadence, my half fall at the end of his name, like I do when I'm trying to make him come. Whoever was making that sound had recorded the way I say it or had listened enough to copy it. Either way, it was deliberate. For a good 30 seconds, I sat very still, the kind of still that tightens muscles until they're small knots. I rehearsed practical things in my head, pack up quietly, flashlight on low, move. But there was no way to be quiet and fast at the same time. Every motion felt loud in that hush. My dog pressed against my leg as if to say, "I'm here." And the contact steadied me. The voice came a third time. This time it wasn't just calling. There was a thread of movement behind it, the way sound steps when the source is walking. The sound traced along the perimeter of the clearing, moving left, then right. Whoever was out there was trying to draw someone out of the light. That's the moment the story flips, when you realize the place you chose for solitude is someone else's opportunity. My first thought was not some cinematic bravado. It was not heroics. It was a small, sharp calculation. If you get separated from the dog in that dark, you give them a way in. I did not want to find out what they wanted me to do. I didn't answer. I didn't shout. I packed. Not carefully, not quietly, but with the kind of speed that makes hands clumsy. I shoved the tent into its bag, threw a jacket over my shoulders, clipped the leash to my dog, and kept my flashlight off, because even a dot of light announces presence in a place that's supposed to be empty. The thud of my pack's buckles sounded enormous between the trees. Every sound seemed to point at me. I moved with the plan that had gotten me out of tight places before. Put the dog between me and whatever's behind, keep to the trail, don't stray to investigate. I did not look back. I tried not to let my heartbeat be the loudest thing in the world, but the dog's respiration matched mine. Slower than I felt, but steady enough to be proof that we were both alive. The 3 miles back to the trailhead that night stretched like the inside of a long tunnel. With a headlamp on low, I picked my way along roots and wet leaves. My shoulders cramped. My legs ached more quickly than they should have. Every sound, a branch underfoot, the sigh of wind through the pines, tried to tell me it was normal. But when a twig snapped somewhere off the trail, my shoulders jumped like I'd been stung. The voice didn't call again. Either whoever had been using it realized they'd been heard, or they decided they didn't need to chase. I didn't stop until I saw the car, its shape a dark rectangle under the trailhead sign, keys glittering like a promise in my hand. Only there, with the engine idling and the heater starting to push out warmth, did I let myself breathe long and stupid the way you do after running. My dog stretched once and then turned in a circle and lay down on the passenger floor like nothing had happened. The next week, I found a forum thread about that stretch of woods. Someone there had posted about a man using recordings to lure campers, playing voices of partners, calling dogs, imitating families. They'd found it after a cluster of people from that area started reporting weirdness. Tents found empty, sleeping bags gone, footprints leading away from sites. The posts were florid in parts, the way internet posts are, but there were enough consistent details to make me look closer. The time of year, the pattern of how he worked, the gear left behind sometimes when people ran. When I read that, the memory of the night tightened around me. It wasn't an echo. It wasn't the woods playing with me. Someone had been out there with a speaker, with patience, and with the kind of awful, methodical mind that figures out how to make other people's instincts do the work for them. They use the shape of your voice and the thing you love, a dog, a partner, a child, to break the thin comfort you carry in the dark. I told myself a handful of comforting things for a while. I told myself that the man was gone, that the internet lies. I told myself the dog's presence had been literal shield enough, but the truth that kept nagging me was smaller and sharper. I had been willing, for the fraction of a second when I first heard my voice, to stand and go see. Not because I wanted to meet a stranger in the dark, but because voices pull at you in the way people do. You hear someone call your name, and part of you will always answer. After that, the small habits took over. I stopped going far alone. I sleep with my phone in reach, the flashlight app already open. When I camp now, I leave a trickle of light on a battery lantern because light reduces the number of lies night can tell. My dog is older but still with me, gray around the muzzle and slower to get up. Sometimes I watch him sleeping and wonder what would have happened if he hadn't been there, not in a cinematic sense with gore or a finale, but in the faint domestic way that matters. I might have followed my own voice into the trees and never made it back. The thing that unsettles me most is how human it all is. There's no supernatural explanation to tuck under your pillow. It's someone who understood the way we answer to sound, who picked up a cheap speaker and the cadence of my hello and used them like a lure. That ordinary cruelty sits with me. I still hear the echo of that night sometimes. Not the voice itself, but that small, stubborn part of me that would have walked toward it if everything else had failed. It's the reminder that there are people who will exploit the simplest pieces of you. So when I tell this, I tell it plain. Don't let your pride be the thing that steps into the dark. Keep the dog close, sure. Keep a light ready. And if you ever hear someone calling a name that belongs to you in the quiet places, don't answer until you can see where the sound is coming from. It sounds small and obvious, but it isn't until you hold your breath and count the seconds that you understand how easy it is to be fooled. That night changed me in small, practical ways. It didn't make me theatrical or paranoid in a dramatic sense. It gave me new routines, a new attention to the ordinary, and a sharper respect for what people will do in the dark when they think no one's watching. I'd been on the road all day, the kind of drive where the towns blur into one another and each gas station looks like the last. By the time I saw the neon motel sign blinking off the highway like a tired eye, my spine felt like it had been folded and left that way. My hands buzzed with too much coffee and too many miles. I wanted a bed that didn't belong to me for one night and a roof that was only a roof. The lobby smelled like old smoke and lemon oil that had given up trying to hide it. A single fluorescent tube hummed behind the desk. The man at the counter was thin and flat-faced with eyes that had already checked out of the day. He didn't so much move as shift the key toward me. a motion that felt rehearsed and small. I told him I'd take a room for the night, and he slid the metal key across the laminate with a thumb that didn't meet mine when I took it. "Stay in your room," he said as I turned to go, his voice small and steady. "No matter what you hear, don't open the door." It landed there, an instruction without a laugh, the kind of line people tell as folklore in a bar, except he wasn't smiling. He looked as if he'd said it 1,000 times and kept count. I didn't ask why. I didn't want to know. I just nodded because the night felt heavier than the words, like a warning wrapped in the kind of gravity that wants to be obeyed. The room itself was what you expect after too many miles. Cheap lamp, bed that bowed in the middle, an air conditioner that rattled like an old man with a cough. The TV was a square in the corner that never quite tuned anything clearly, and the carpet had the soft resilience of a place people walk through without staying. It smelled faintly of something lemony and stale, the ghost of someone trying to make things nicer. I dropped my bag, peeled my boots off, and lay down without turning on the light. The way the mattress accepted me felt like forgiveness. Sometime into a sleep that was half real and half the kind you get on the road, I woke to 3 soft, precise knocks. Knock, knock, knock. The sound had a cadence that belonged to polite requests and late-night troubles alike. For a second, I thought I'd dreamed it. The motel walls are thin like paper and dreams leak into them. But the knocks came again, closer this time. There was a voice through the door, muffled by cheap wood and the motel's thin hallway noise. A woman's voice, small and urgent. Please help me. I need help." Her words were the sort that climb right under whatever rational curtain you put up. They are full of human details that work faster than logic. Breathiness, a catch mid-sentence, the sort of tremor that says someone is halfway between crying and keeping it together. The first tug I felt was not courage. It was a simple recognition of the way one human answers another. It's how we are wired. The clerk's warning came back to me like a coat I'd left on a chair. "Don't open the door." The line circled my head. "No matter what you hear, don't open the door." I lay there with my hand on the blanket, counting useless things to slow my pulse. The woman continued to speak in the spaces between the knocks. "They're after me. Please, I can't." Her plea broke and spun into a small, repeated pattern. Something about the phrasing didn't sit right. Her sentences folded over the same way every time, as if she were reading from memory rather than the raw edge of panic. Wind can do funny things with sound in thin corridors. Motel walls can make twins of separate noises. But there was a mechanical quality, a steadiness that felt rehearsed. The pleading started to sound like a loop instead of a single human moment. I sat up and moved to the door on instinct, the kind that's part animal and part habit. You check to catalog the threat. I pressed my ear to the wood. The air outside was warm, the night traffic a dull wash beyond the parking lot. In the gaps of her voice, I heard other noises. Not just one set of footsteps, but the softer, heavier shuffle of at least 2 people pacing. The floorboards near the vending machine creaked in a rhythm I didn't like. It's funny how a single decision splits into 1,000 little measurements in your head. If it's real and you open the door, you might be able to help. If it's a trick, opening the door hands them your body like a present. The clerk's voice had an authority the motel air seemed to hold. He hadn't said it like a scare tactic. He'd said it like a rule that saves people in exactly this moment. I didn't open the door. I couldn't tell you if that was caution or cowardice. Both can look very much the same in a dark hallway. I pulled the covers up to my chin and tried to make my breathing into a machine. The woman's knocks became louder, the voice more insistent. She kept calling out different lines. "Please, someone." "They took my." The pattern was the same shape, but the words shifted like variations on a practice song. At one point, the knock stopped. Silence stretched, thick as old tar. For a minute, the motel was nothing but its humming fridge and the distant occasional car on the highway. The silence felt like a mouth. I waited, the kind of waiting that makes minutes feel like small gulfs. Then, the hallway light blinked, one of those bulbs that struggles to come to life, and the woman's voice resumed, but quieter now, as if something or someone had moved away. I lay there and felt the bed beneath me, solid and useless in equal measure. I imagined hands on the knob, the sawed-off echo of footsteps, the possibility that they had moved on. I also imagined the worst, that they were circling, changing tactics. When morning crept through the curtains, the world realigned itself into ordinary shapes. Sunlight found the privacy film on the glass and painted a soft rectangle across the bedspread. I dressed without ceremony, the motel's wallpaper looking normal and wrong at the same time. Down at the front desk, the same thin man sat behind the counter, his posture unchanged. He looked up when I entered and nodded, like someone acknowledging that a small test had been passed. "They would have killed you," he said, flat and small. No relief, no flourish, just the statement, like he'd read off a simple fact. That sentence is the sort that leaves an aftertaste. I wanted to press for details. Who were they? How many? Did they try that trick before? But there was a line in his face that told me even if he replied, he wouldn't make it softer. Some things he seemed to suggest were better left without the full shape of explanation. He handed me my key without a flicker of emotion. My grip left a faint oil on the metal. On the drive away, the motel shrank in the rear view, a small box with a neon halo. The highway unrolled until my muscles stopped protesting. I tried to rerun the night in my head, looking for the moment I almost told myself to open the door, hunting for the exact impulse that comes when a human voice makes you forget the rest of the world. I found it in the way the pleas were shaped, in the quickness my heart gave when it heard the first two knocks. It's alarming how well someone can use that reflexive answer you have toward another human in trouble. Weeks later, I read a small article about a string of incidents in motels along that stretch. People reporting late knocks and recorded voices, guests who walked out into parking lots and didn't come back. The article was short and clinical, the kind that lists facts and moves on, but underneath it was a pattern. The use of sound as a lure, the timing that picked couples who were tired, lonely, or too worn to notice a trick. The thing that stuck with me was how ordinary the method was.